how to build a mind that no one and nothing can ever harm. Again today, you're going to learn an essential skill that will change your days. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to navigate emotional storms as if they were mere raindrops, while others are completely devastated by a simple malicious comment? Why do certain individuals manage to maintain their inner peace even in the face of the most painful betrayal, the cruelest rejection, or the fiercest criticism, while you feel literally torn apart by words that shouldn't even have so much power over your life? The fundamental difference isn't in physical strength, intellectual capacity, or even the luck each person has had in life. The difference lies in the mental architecture these people have consciously built, an inner fortress so solid and well-structured that nothing and no one can shake its foundations. And you? Honestly, do you still allow your inner peace to be completely held hostage by others' moods, by external approvals that may or may not come, by circumstances that are completely beyond your control and constantly changing? Building a truly unshakable mind isn't about becoming insensitive, cold, or disconnected from natural human emotions. Quite the opposite. It's about developing an inner strength so solid, so well-founded, that you can feel deeply without destroying yourself. In the process, it's about creating an emotional core so firm and stable within yourself that even when the entire world around you seems to crumble, when everything seems to be going wrong, when people disappoint you and circumstances conspire against you, you remain fundamentally whole, intact, in control of your own experience. Imagine for a moment, truly pause and visualize, that you possess this unshakable mind we're discussing. Imagine someone deliberately trying to humiliate you in public, perhaps in front of colleagues or people you respect, and instead of feeling that familiar, devastating pang of shame and anger rising in your chest, making your face hot and your mind go completely blank, you simply observe the situation with crystal clear clarity, almost as if you were watching it from the outside. Imagine that a romantic betrayal, perhaps the discovery that your partner has been cheating on you for months, instead of leaving you literally in pieces, crying for days, questioning your self-worth, and torturing yourself with thoughts about what you did wrong, simply teaches you something valuable and profound about discernment, about signs you may have ignored, about the importance of trusting your intuition more. Imagine that a significant financial loss, perhaps losing a job you considered secure, or an investment that went wrong, instead of completely despairing and making you feel like the world is ending, simply shows you a new direction to follow, an opportunity to recalibrate your priorities and discover internal resources you didn't even know you possessed. What I'm describing isn't romantic fantasy or superficial positive thinking. It's a real concrete skill that can be systematically developed through specific practices and conscious changes in how you process reality. But it requires you to definitively stop running from the only battle that truly matters in your life. The battle that constantly takes place within your own mind, because it is there in that quiet and often chaotic territory of your thoughts and emotions that all the important wars of your life are lost or won. The unshakable mind isn't born ready, as if it were a natural talent that some lucky people receive at birth. It is consciously forged in the fire of adversity, day after day, choice after choice. It is tempered by daily discipline, by consistent commitment to practices that strengthen your mental fiber. It is refined by an ever-deepening understanding of how the complex internal mechanisms that govern your peace, your emotional stability, and your ability to respond to life instead of simply reacting to it, actually work. Do you really want this mind? Are you willing to pay the price necessary to build it? Then prepare for a journey that will require genuine courage to look within yourself without masks or self-deception. It will demand brutal honesty with yourself about mental and emotional patterns you may have carried for decades, and it will require the courageous willingness to abandon old patterns of thought and reaction that no longer serve you, even if these patterns are familiar and in some ways comfortable. Why an unshakable mind is vital? Why is developing this unshakable mind absolutely vital for anyone who genuinely wants to evolve and overcome the inevitable challenges of human life? The answer is simple yet profound, because as long as your inner peace, your self-esteem, your sense of worth and purpose depend on external factors, on the constantly changing moods of others, on the success or failure of your projects, on society's approval or disapproval, you will be eternally vulnerable to forces that are completely beyond your control. You will be like a house built on quicksand, no matter how beautiful the structure, no matter how much effort you've put into decorating and details. Any external tremor, any change in ground conditions can make everything crumble in a matter of moments. And you'll be left wondering what happened, why everything you built fell apart so quickly, why you feel so lost and vulnerable. But when you consciously develop a truly unshakable mind, something extraordinary and transformative happens in your life experience. You become genuinely free from the desperate and constant need for approval that makes you mold your personality according to others' expectations. Free from the paralyzing fear of rejection that prevents you from being authentic, from expressing your real opinions, from taking necessary risks to grow. Free from the anger that consumes your energy when things don't go exactly as you planned, when people don't act as you expected, when life takes unforeseen turns. And in this genuine freedom, you find a power that absolutely no one can take away from you, no matter what happens in the external circumstances of your life. The sovereign power to choose your own reactions. The power to consciously decide how you will process and respond to events, instead of being an automatic reactor who simply explodes or implodes according to external winds. Are you reacting on autopilot? Have you ever found yourself reacting completely on autopilot to a provocation? Perhaps saying things you deeply regretted moments later, or making impulsive decisions that unnecessarily complicated your life? Have you ever felt that terrible sensation of being controlled by your own emotions, as if you were a passenger in your own body and mind? Have you ever lost entire nights of sleep, obsessively replaying some conversation or situation because someone said something that hurt you, or because something didn't go as you expected? These are all clear and unequivocal signs that your mind has not yet developed the necessary defenses, the internal structures that provide true emotional stability. Your inner peace is still exposed, vulnerable, completely at the mercy of forces that in reality should be irrelevant to your fundamental sense of well-being and internal security. The unshakable mind you are learning to build doesn't ignore pain. That would be superficiality and denial. It processes pain in a completely different, more mature, wiser way. It doesn't avoid life's inevitable challenges. That would be avoidance and immaturity. It uses challenges as fuel to grow, as opportunities to strengthen mental and emotional muscles. It doesn't deny natural emotions. That would be self-dishonesty. It observes all emotions without being dominated or controlled by any of them. It's exactly like the difference between being violently pulled by a current without control over your direction, hitting rocks and getting hurt in the process, versus consciously navigating the same river, using the force of the current to your advantage, maintaining control of your boat, choosing your route wisely, and reaching your desired destination with elegance. And here's something most people simply don't understand, perhaps because our culture doesn't teach it. Building this unshakable mind isn't a weekend project. It's not something you solve in a few weeks of concentrated effort. It's a genuine, lifelong commitment. It's a continuous process of refinement and strengthening. Every day offers multiple opportunities to strengthen or weaken your inner fortress. Every social interaction is a test of your mental and emotional skills. Every challenge that arises is valuable training. Every moment of irritation, frustration, or disappointment is a precious chance to practice the self-mastery you are developing. The path isn't easy, and it would be dishonest to say it is. But it's elegantly simple when you understand the fundamental principles. And it all begins with a conscious and definitive decision. The decision to stop being a victim of your own emotional reactions. The decision to take full responsibility for what happens within your mind, regardless of what is happening outside of it. The decision to build brick by brick, thought by thought, experience by experience. A mental structure so solid and well-founded that nothing in the external world can shake it in a lasting way. Are you genuinely ready to embark on this journey? Are you prepared to discover what it truly means to have true control over your inner life, over your reactions, over your peace, Then let's begin our detailed exploration by first examining what happens when you don't possess this mental fortress, and why most people live in constant emotional vulnerability, being swept away by the winds of external circumstances, the consequences of an untrained mind. The sad and inescapable reality is that the vast majority of people live exactly like dry leaves in the autumn wind, completely at the mercy of constantly changing external forces, without any real control over their emotional reactions, being violently swept from side to side by the unpredictable moods and inconsistent behaviors of others. An acid comment from a colleague, perhaps a sarcastic remark during an important meeting, and there goes all the confidence carefully built over years of effort and self-discipline. A seemingly minor criticism on social media made by someone they don't even know personally, someone who might be having a bad day or simply enjoys provoking conflict, and their self-esteem plummets dramatically as if they had been hit by a speeding train. A simple look of disapproval, perhaps not even directed specifically at them, perhaps not even intentional, and their inner peace is completely devastated, destroyed, reduced to emotional rubble. They react impulsively, explode emotionally, defend themselves desperately, or withdraw into painful, resentful silence, always in a frantic and absolutely exhausting dance to the rhythm of others' moods, like puppets whose invisible strings are firmly in the hands of people who often don't genuinely care about them, who don't even know their dreams, fears, aspirations, or personal history. It's a way of living that is simultaneously exhausting and deeply tragic, because it wastes an astronomical amount of precious mental and emotional energy that could be directed towards things that are truly important, constructive and transformative in these people's lives. Instead of using that energy to grow, create, love, contribute, it is constantly drained in unnecessary reactions to stimuli that in reality are completely irrelevant to their genuine happiness and fulfillment. Do you honestly recognize this destructive pattern in your own life? You probably not only recognize it, but intensely live this painful reality every day, sometimes every hour, feeling as if you are on an emotional roller coaster that never stops, that never offers a moment of genuine and lasting peace. Someone ignores you in a social conversation. Perhaps it wasn't even intentional. Maybe the person was simply distracted by personal concerns. Perhaps they were processing important information. Perhaps they simply didn't hear because the environment was noisy. But you immediately, automatically, without any pause for reflection, assume you did something terribly wrong, that you offended the person in some serious way, that you are not worthy of their attention, that you are irrelevant or socially inadequate. Your boss speaks in a slightly drier tone than usual during a hallway conversation. Perhaps he is just tired after a particularly difficult week, or worried about pressures from his superiors, or dealing with personal problems at home, or simply trying to focus on an urgent task. But you spend the entire rest of the day, and perhaps several subsequent days, obsessively wondering if you're going to be fired, if your performance is being considered unsatisfactory, if you're about to receive a humiliating public reprimand, if your career is in jeopardy. Marina's story, a case study in reactivity. Let me share the detailed story of Marina, an extraordinarily talented executive I met a few years ago. She literally had everything to be exceptionally successful. Impressive analytical intelligence, technical competence few could match, admirable work ethic, and strategic vision that anticipated market trends. But there was a fatal flaw that sabotaged all her potential. She couldn't handle criticism functionally. Any negative feedback devastated her for days. Any questioning of her ideas made her question her entire competence. It was as if every criticism triggered an internal alarm. You're a failure. Everyone will find out you're a fraud. During an important meeting with directors, a colleague publicly questioned a project she had developed. The criticism was professional. He raised questions about schedule and budget that needed to be addressed. Any mature professional would know this is a normal part of the process, but Marina felt that familiar wave of heat rising in her chest. Shame, anger, panic. Her face turned red, her voice trembled, her mind went blank. Instead of defending her, idea with solid arguments or constructively accepting suggestions. She stammered meaningless defensive words, apologized unnecessarily, and left the room claiming she needed to retrieve documents. The project, which was genuinely excellent, was shelved. Not for lack of merit, but because Marina didn't know how to navigate simple criticism with elegance. Her uncontrolled emotional reaction made everyone question her professional maturity. Months later, she was passed over for a promotion. The feedback was clear. Your technical skills are exceptional, but we need someone who maintains composure under pressure, who handles criticism constructively, who has the emotional maturity to lead in challenging situations. What happened to Marina? She had allowed her inner peace to depend completely on others' approval. Every criticism was interpreted as a personal attack. Every question was processed as a threat to her identity. She built her self-esteem on such fragile foundations that any strong wind could blow everything down. But Marina is not an exception. She is the rule. Most people live this way, emotionally dependent on external factors, reacting impulsively to every provocation, missing opportunities because they cannot maintain composure in the face of manageable pressures. Have you ever found yourself in a similar situation? Have you ever lost an important argument because you let emotion take over? Have you ever sabotaged a relationship because you misinterpreted a silence? Have you ever destroyed your credibility because you reacted disproportionately to manageable criticism? The problem isn't the criticisms, the silences, or the pressures. The problem is your interpretation of these events, your inability to stay centered when the world stirs, your emotional dependence on factors outside your control. The predictable patterns of a reactive mind. The reactive mind has predictable patterns. First, it always assumes the worst. A silence is interpreted as anger. A delay is seen as disrespect. A change of plans is understood as rejection. There is no pause for alternative explanations. It's always the most dramatic interpretation that wins. Second, it personalizes everything. If something goes wrong, it must be your fault. If someone is moody, it must be because of you. If a project fails, you are a failure as a person. There is no possibility that people have their own lives concerns that have nothing to do with you. Third, it dramatizes simple situations. Feedback becomes public humiliation. A disagreement becomes the end of a relationship. Financial difficulty becomes the end of the world. There is no sense of proportion. Everything is life or death. Fourth, it loses temporal perspective. A difficult period means love is over forever. A phase of difficulties means you will never achieve stability. A mistake means your career is ruined. Temporary problems become permanent tragedies. The result? A life of constant ups and downs, a chronic feeling of being under threat, mental exhaustion from always being on alert, and a sense of powerlessness in the face of one's own life. But you don't have to live like this. This emotional roller coaster is not an inevitable condition of human life. It is the result of a mind untrained to deal with the natural pressures of existence. Marina eventually learned this. After losing the promotion, she reached a point where she could no longer live enslaved by her own reactions. The pain of continuing that way became greater than the fear of change. She decided that something needed to change in how she processed criticism. She began to observe her reaction patterns. She noticed how she interpreted feedback as a personal attack. She saw how her need for approval made her vulnerable to any criticism. She began to question these interpretations. Is this criticism a personal attack or an attempt to improve the project? Does this questioning mean incompetence or that my colleague is doing his job? Is this suggestion evidence of failure or an opportunity to create something better? Slowly, through consistent practice, she developed a new relationship with adversity. Instead of reacting automatically, she began to pause. Instead of personalizing criticism, she began to analyze it objectively. Instead of dramatizing situations, she began to keep them in perspective. The transformation was real. The next time someone questioned one of her projects, she didn't panic. She listened attentively, asked clarifying questions, and presented arguments calmly. The project was approved, and she was praised for her maturity in conducting the discussion. What changed? Marina developed an unshakable mind, a mental structure that doesn't depend on external approval to remain firm, a capacity to process criticism without destroying herself, an ability to maintain inner peace even when the outside world presents pressures. What if you decided to follow the same path? What if you developed the ability to choose your responses? What if you saw challenges as opportunities to strengthen your inner fortress? What would happen if you stopped being a leaf in the wind and became the tree, firm, rooted, able to bend without breaking? What kind of life could you build if nothing and no one could shake your inner peace? The answer lies in understanding how a truly strong mind works, the logic of an unshakable mind. The literature of self-mastery and success, from Stoic philosophers to modern thinkers, converges on a fundamental truth. Real power isn't in controlling the world around you, but in mastering the world within you. Leaders who left their mark on humanity, from Marcus Aurelius to Gandhi, from Lincoln to Mandela, all possessed a common characteristic, a mind that remained firm regardless of external storms. They understood a simple yet revolutionary logic. If adverse situations generate automatic suffering in untrained minds, then consistent mental training generates automatic fortitude. If lack of internal preparation produces destructive reactions, then mental discipline produces constructive responses. If emotional dependence on external factors creates vulnerability, then emotional independence creates true power. To understand how this works, think of a sea storm. On the surface, the waves churn violently, but in the depths, absolute calm reigns. The unshakable mind works this way. While the surface may register external turbulence, the center remains serene, in control. Imagine an experienced warrior on the battlefield. Around him, complete chaos, screams, iron against iron, confusion. But he moves with calculated precision, not because he is insensitive to danger, but because he has trained his mind to function with clarity even in chaos. Every movement is intentional, every decision conscious, every response chosen. This is the difference between a common mind and an unshakable mind. The common mind reacts, like a wounded animal that attacks everything around it. The unshakable mind responds, like a master who evaluates, decides, and acts with precision. But how does this transformation happen? The answer lies in understanding a principle that great masters discovered. You are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are the observer of them. When you learn to position yourself as an observer of your internal experience, something magical happens. You gain distance, perspective, and power of choice. It's like climbing a mountain to observe a valley. From above, you see patterns invisible when you were in the midst of the confusion. You see connections you didn't perceive. You understand the larger context. The unshakable mind is that view from above, an elevated perspective that allows for wiser decisions. Literature teaches us every destructive emotion arises from a mistaken interpretation of reality. You don't get angry at facts. You get angry at what you think about the facts. You don't suffer from events. You suffer from the meaning you attribute to the events. You are not hurt by others' words. You are hurt by the importance you give to those words. This means that the key to emotional invulnerability lies in controlling your interpretations. And this control is only possible when you develop the ability to create a pause between an external stimulus and an internal response. In that pause lies all the power of the unshakable mind. Think of a river that encounters a rock in its path. It doesn't fight the rock. It doesn't get angry at it. It doesn't try to destroy it. It simply flows around it, maintaining its direction. The water remains water, the river remains river, but the rock ceases to be an obstacle. An unshakable mind functions like this river. When it encounters criticism, it doesn't fight it. It flows around it, extracting what's useful and letting the irrelevant pass. When it faces rejection, it doesn't destroy itself. It accepts it as information and keeps flowing. When it experiences losses, it doesn't become paralyzed. It incorporates the experience and moves forward with increased wisdom. But this doesn't mean becoming apathetic or cold. It means developing an inner strength so solid that you can fully engage with life without being devastated by its turbulence. You can love deeply without paralyzing fear. You can work intensely without neurotic despair. You can relate authentically without desperate dependence. The logic is clear. If you build your identity on external approval, any disapproval destroys it. If you build self-esteem on temporary successes, any failure shatters it. If you base peace on controllable circumstances, any change annihilates it. But if you build an inner fortress on unshakable foundations, solid values, deep self-knowledge, mental discipline, then nothing external has the power to destroy it. Great. Leaders understood this viscerally. Mandela spent 27 years in prison and emerged without bitterness with greater strength. Gandhi faced hostility and kept his essence intact. King was constantly threatened and maintained clarity of purpose. They built their identities on foundations that transcended temporary circumstances. The unshakable mind is not an innate talent, it is a developed skill. It is not genetic luck, it is conscious work. It is not the privilege of a few, it is the right of all willing to pay the price of mental discipline. What is that price? First, a willingness to honestly observe your mental patterns. Second, the courage to question automatic interpretations. Third, the humility to admit that much suffering is the mind's own creation. Fourth, the determination to daily train new ways of processing reality. Imagine yourself as a sculptor before raw marble. Every consciously observed thought is a hammer, blow that removes the unnecessary. Every controlled reaction is a chisel that refines details. Every questioned interpretation is a polish that reveals beauty. Slowly, you sculpt a mind that is truly yours. The difference between those who possess this mind and those who don't is striking. While some are swept away by emotional tides, others navigate consciously. While some react to what happens, others create what they want. While some are victims of circumstances, others are architects of destiny. This transformation is not mystical, it is practical. It involves specific techniques, concrete habits, daily practices. And that's what we're going to explore next. 5. Practical steps to build your unshakable mind now. That you understand the logic behind the unshakable mind, it's time to turn theory into practice. Building this inner fortress requires specific steps, deliberate habits, and daily practices that you can implement today. Step 1. Practice the sacred pause. Develop the habit of pausing before reacting to any situation that triggers intense emotions. When someone criticizes you at work, when your partner says something that annoys you, when you receive frustrating news, stop. Take 3 deep breaths, count to 5. During this pause, ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? What would be the wisest response? Don't worry about finding perfect answers. The goal is to break the automatic reaction pattern. Imagine being in line and someone cuts in front of you. First reaction, indignation. Instead of impulsively confronting them, apply the pause. Breathe. Observe your reaction. I'm feeling angry because I interpret this as disrespect. Ask, is it worth destroying my peace over this? Is there a smarter way to handle it? Often the pause is enough to dissolve the destructive emotion. When it's not, at least you will have consciously chosen your response. Step 2. Observe thoughts. Like clouds in the sky develop. The habit of observing thoughts without identifying with them. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes the thoughts. When negative thoughts arise, I'm a failure. No one respects me. Nothing ever works out. Don't fight them or automatically believe them. Simply observe, interesting. So I'm having a self-deprecating thought. Or, my mind is interpreting this as a catastrophe. Practice during challenging situations. If you make a mistake at work and your mind bombards you with self-criticism, I always mess everything up. My boss will fire me. Observe like a scientist. My mind is creating catastrophic scenarios. It's trying to protect me by anticipating the worst. But these are just thoughts, not facts. This practice develops metacognition, the ability to think about thoughts. People with this skill have much more control over their emotional experiences. Step 3. Automatically reframe. Interpretations. Train your mind to find alternative interpretations for negative events. When something seemingly bad happens, force yourself to find 3 different ways to interpret it. Did your boss not respond to an important email? Instead of, "They're ignoring me because they don't value me," try, "Maybe they're busy. They might not have seen it yet. Maybe they're carefully analyzing it before responding." Did your partner arrive home looking serious? Instead of "They're mad at me," consider, "They might have had a tough day. Maybe they're worried about a personal issue. They might just be tired." This isn't positive self-deception, it's realism training. Most automatic negative interpretations are speculations based on insecurities, not facts. When you train alternative interpretations, you develop a more accurate and less dramatic view of reality. Step 4. Visualize yourself responding. With wisdom, set aside a few minutes daily to visualize yourself elegantly handling challenging situations. Imagine someone criticizing you unfairly. See yourself listening calmly, processing objectively, responding with maturity. Visualize receiving frustrating news. See yourself absorbing the information without collapsing, maintaining perspective, focusing on solutions. This visualization isn't fantasy, it's mental rehearsal. Athletes use this technique to improve performance. You can use it to improve emotional performance. When real situations arise, your mind will already have a model for a wise response. Be specific. If you struggle with criticism, imagine detailed scenarios. A colleague questioning your work in a meeting, a friend making an acid comment, a family member criticizing your choices. In each scenario, see yourself maintaining composure, processing the criticism objectively, and responding with wisdom. Step 5. Ask yourself the right questions. Develop the habit of asking questions that strengthen rather than weaken your mind. The questions you ask determine your mental focus. Focus determines the quality of your thoughts, which determine the quality of your emotions and actions. Instead of, "Why does this always happen to me?" a victim's question, ask, "What can I learn?" a growth question. Instead of, "Why am I so unlucky?" ask, "How can I use this to grow?" Instead of, "Why are people so difficult?" ask, "How can I relate better?" Questions shape identity. Victim questions create a victim mentality. Growth questions create a growth mindset. After an argument with someone close, instead of, "How could they say that?" ask, "What does this teach me about communication? How can I express my feelings better? What part of the responsibility is mine?" These 5 practices are not optional suggestions. They are fundamental pillars. Each one strengthens a specific aspect. Pausing develops self-control. Observation develops self-awareness. Reframing develops flexibility. Visualization develops preparedness. And asking the right questions develops constructive focus. Implement, one at a time for a week, until it becomes automatic. In 5 weeks, you will have established the foundations of profound transformation, and you will have developed practical tools for any emotional challenge. Here's the US English translation of your text. Remember, you're not trying to eliminate emotions or become cold. You're developing the capacity to feel fully without being controlled by your feelings, to engage completely without being devastated by turbulence, to maintain your center even when everything around you is chaotic. These practices might seem simple, but they are profoundly transformative when applied consistently. Consistency is key. It's better to practice 5 minutes daily than 1 hour weekly. The unshakable mind is built through small, daily acts of mental discipline, not grand, sporadic gestures. To help these concepts take deep root in your consciousness, let's explore 3 powerful metaphors that capture the essence of the unshakable mind. These images aren't just illustrations. They are mental maps you can use to navigate challenges with greater wisdom. The sacred mountain metaphor. Imagine yourself as a majestic mountain. Your base is deeply rooted in the earth, your foundations. extending into the most solid layers of the soil. Around you, the weather constantly changes. Furious storms, violent winds, torrential rains, scorching heat. But you remain motionless, serene, undisturbed. The storms may cover your peak with dark clouds, but they always pass. The winds may howl around your summits, but they cannot move you an inch. Rain may drench you, the sun may warm you, snow may cover you, but your essence remains unchanged. This is the nature of the unshakable mind. Tempestuous emotions, anger, sadness, frustration, fear, are like the weather passing over the mountain. They can be intense, dramatic, even overwhelming for moments, but they are temporary. You, like the mountain, remain fundamentally unaltered. When someone criticizes you harshly, you feel the criticism as the mountain feels the storm. You register its presence, experience its intensity, but you are not shaken. When you face a significant loss, you feel the pain as the mountain feels the cold of winter. It's real, it's present, but it's fleeting. The key lies in the depth of your roots. A mountain is not shaken by storms because its base goes much deeper than any superficial disturbance. Your unshakable mind works the same way. The deeper your roots, solid values, self-knowledge, mental discipline, the more immune you become to superficial turbulence. Use this image when you face difficult moments. Visualize yourself as this mountain. Feel the solidity of your base, the stability of your inner structure. Remember that tempestuous emotions are like passing clouds, real while present, but incapable of altering your fundamental essence. The orchestra conductor metaphor. Now imagine yourself as the conductor of a grand symphony orchestra. Before you are dozens of musicians, each representing an aspect of your life. Emotions, thoughts, responsibilities, relationships, fears, ambitions. When you don't possess an unshakable mind, it's as if the orchestra plays without a conductor. Each musician plays when they want, at the volume they want, at the speed they want. The result is chaos, noise without harmony, sound without music, energy without direction. Your emotions explode uncontrollably, your thoughts trip over each other, your decisions are impulsive and contradictory. But when you develop an unshakable mind, you become the conscious conductor of your inner orchestra. With your baton, your trained consciousness, you indicate when each instrument should play, at what intensity, at what tempo. You don't eliminate the instruments, all have their role, but you coordinate their contributions to create harmony instead of chaos. Anger has its moment in the music, when you need to set clear boundaries. Sadness has its melody, when you need to process losses and connect with your humanity. Fear has its rhythm, when you need to assess real risks. But now these emotional instruments play under your conscious direction, not as random noise. When someone provokes you, instead of letting anger explode, you, as the conductor, decide, this is a moment for wisdom to lead, with a slight contribution of firmness but keeping anger at a low volume. When facing a daunting challenge, you direct the orchestra. Let's make space for fear to inform me about risks, but courage will lead the main melody. This metaphor helps you understand you are not just an instrument in the orchestra of life, you are the conductor. You are not at the mercy of emotions, you are in command of them. You are not a victim of thoughts, you are their director. When you feel overwhelmed, remember this image. Stop, breathe, and consciously assume the role of conductor. Observe which instruments are playing uncontrollably. Use your awareness to bring order, harmony, and direction to the symphony of your inner experience. The wise gardener. Metaphor. Finally, see yourself as a gardener tending a magnificent garden. Your mind. In this garden grow all kinds of plants, beautiful flowers, constructive thoughts, medicinal herbs, valuable insights, fruit trees, nurturing relationships, but also weeds, destructive thoughts, and poisonous plants, toxic mental patterns. The inexperienced gardener despairs over weeds. They spend all their energy fighting them, angrily pulling them out, cursing their existence. But the wise gardener understands something profound. Weeds will always appear. It's part of the nature of any garden. The difference isn't in the absence of weeds, but in the ability to deal with them effectively. The wise gardener doesn't deny the presence of weeds, negative thoughts, destructive emotions, but also doesn't allow them to dominate the garden. They observe them clearly, identify which need to be removed and which can be left without causing harm. They remove the problematic ones calmly and precisely, without drama or despair. More importantly, the wise gardener focuses most of their energy not on fighting weeds, but on cultivating the plants they want to see flourish. They regularly water constructive thoughts. They offer nutrients, spiritual practices, uplifting readings, healthy relationships, to the areas they want to develop. They carefully prune excesses that could hinder overall growth. When you develop an unshakable mind, you become this wise gardener. You don't despair when negative thoughts appear. They always will, it's part of the human condition. But you don't allow them to dominate the garden of your consciousness. A self-critical thought arises. You notice it as the gardener notices a weed. Here's that self-deprecating pattern again. I won't feed it with excessive attention, but I also won't pretend it doesn't exist. You acknowledge it, perhaps extract some useful information, and then redirect your attention to cultivating more nourishing thoughts. A destructive emotion like envy or resentment appears. You treat it like a poisonous plant that needs to be handled with care. You don't touch it with bare hands, you don't fully identify with it, you don't allow it to spread, you don't let it contaminate other aspects of your life, but you remove it with appropriate tools, emotional processing techniques, honest conversations, forgiveness practices. These three metaphors, the mountain, the conductor, and the gardener, offer powerful mental maps to navigate life's challenges with an unshakable mind. They remind you that you can be stable as a mountain, harmonious as a well-directed orchestra, and prosperous as a well-tended garden. Use them regularly. When you feel shaken, visualize yourself as a mountain and feel your fundamental stability. When you feel internally disorganized, assume the role of conductor and bring order to your emotional orchestra. When you feel dominated by destructive thoughts, become the wise gardener and consciously cultivate the mental aspects you want to see flourish. These images are not just metaphors, they are tools for transformation. The more vividly you can visualize and embody them, the more quickly you will develop the unshakable mind you are seeking. The final mastery: silence, detachment, and daily discipline. The ultimate mastery of the unshakable mind isn't just about how you react to challenges, but how you use silence, detachment, and daily discipline to build an impregnable inner fortress. These are the refinements that separate a merely strong mind from a truly unshakable mind. The power of strategic silence. There's an extraordinary power in conscious silence that most people never learn to use. When someone provokes you, your first reaction might be to defend yourself, explain yourself, or counterattack. But the unshakable mind has discovered something revolutionary. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Practice strategic silence when someone tries to emotionally provoke you. Instead of biting the bait, simply observe. Maintain calm eye contact. Let the silence do the work. You'll be surprised by what happens. The person trying to destabilize you often becomes destabilized by your serenity. Your peace becomes a force that redefines the entire dynamic. This doesn't mean being passive or submissive. It means consciously choosing when it's worth expending energy on words. Often, silence communicates far more than any argument could. It says, "Your provocation has no power over me. My peace doesn't depend on convincing you of anything." When your boss unfairly criticizes you, instead of desperately defending yourself, try listening in silence, processing the information objectively, and only responding when you have something genuinely constructive to say. When someone insults you, instead of immediately retaliating, let the silence absorb the toxicity of the moment and respond only if it serves a greater purpose than your need to be right. Strategic silence also applies to internal dialogues. When your mind starts bombarding you with self-criticism or catastrophic scenarios, try not to respond immediately to these thoughts. Let them exist in the space of your consciousness without engaging with them. Often, they dissolve naturally when they don't receive the desperate attention they seek. The art of conscious detachment. Detachment is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of the unshakable mind. It doesn't mean not caring or becoming apathetic. It means freeing yourself from the desperate need for results to be exactly as you plan. It's like a river flowing towards the sea. It has a clear direction, but when it encounters obstacles, it adapts its course without losing its essence. Practice detachment on 3 fundamental levels. First, detach from the need for constant approval. Your peace cannot depend on everyone liking you, agreeing with you, or validating your choices. When you offer an idea at work, do it with conviction, but don't destroy yourself if it's rejected. When you choose a life path, follow it with determination, but don't despair if others don't understand your motivations. Second, detach from the need to control outcomes. You can control your effort, your preparation, your attitude, but you cannot control how the world responds. When you apply for a job, prepare excellently. Present yourself authentically, but don't hold your self-esteem hostage to the decision of people who don't even know you well. Third, detach from the need for everything to happen on your timeline. Life has its own rhythm, often different from your expectations. Work consistently toward your goals, but don't torture yourself when results take longer than you'd like. Conscious detachment is like learning to hold things with open hands instead of closed fists. You still care deeply, you still strive intensely, but you don't suffocate what you love with desperate need. Paradoxically, when you stop clinging so desperately to results, results often improve, because you act with more clarity, less anxiety, and greater wisdom. Daily discipline as a foundation. The unshakable mind isn't built in moments of crisis. It's built in ordinary moments through daily practices that strengthen your inner fiber, like an athlete nourishes their physical strength. Start each day with 5 minutes of conscious gratitude. Don't just list things you're grateful for, but genuinely feel the gratitude. Allow it to fill your chest, to warm your heart. Gratitude is like an emotional immune system. The more you practice it, the more resistant you become to destructive thoughts. Practice 10 minutes daily of silent mental observation. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and simply observe the flow of your thoughts without judging them or trying to change them. It's like training to be the mountain observer, the orchestra conductor, the wise gardener. The more you practice this detached observation, the more natural it becomes during challenging situations. End each day with an honest reflection on your reaction patterns. Ask yourself, today, in what moments did I react automatically instead of responding consciously? What situations knocked me off center? How can I better handle similar situations tomorrow? Don't judge yourself for failures. Use them as information for growth. Maintain a daily commitment to self-control in small things. When you feel like compulsively checking your phone, pause and consciously choose whether to do it or not. When you want to complain about something trivial, observe the impulse and choose to express it constructively or let it pass. These small exercises in self-discipline strengthen your capacity for conscious choice in larger situations. Create an end-of-day ritual to release accumulated tensions. This could be a few minutes of deep breathing, a conscious relaxing bath, a few pages of inspiring reading, or simply a few moments of thankful silence. The important thing is to signal to your mind that the day is over and you can rest in peace regardless of what happened. Integrating everything, the life of an unshakable mind. When you integrate all these practices, the sacred pause, conscious observation, reframing interpretations, strategic silence, conscious detachment, and daily discipline, something extraordinary happens. You develop a presence that others instinctively perceive, a calm that isn't coldness, a strength that isn't harshness, a peace that isn't indifference. People around you will start seeking you out in moments of crisis because they perceive that you are not dragged down by emotional turbulence. You become a safe harbor, not only for yourself but for others who are still struggling to find inner stability. Your unshakable mind becomes a gift you offer to the world. But remember, this transformation is a process, not an event. There will be days when you react automatically, when you are swept away by emotions, when you temporarily lose your peace. This is normal and expected. The difference is that now you have the tools to quickly recognize when you've strayed from your center and the skills to return to it. The unshakable mind is not a fortress that is never attacked. It is a fortress that can be temporarily penetrated, but that rebuilds quickly and grows stronger with each reconstruction. It is the capacity to return to your center with increasing speed and ease. Recap and call to action. Let's quickly recap the fundamental elements of the unshakable mind we've explored. You've understood that most people live like leaves in the wind, reacting automatically to every external provocation, while you can choose to be like a mountain, firm, stable, undisturbed by temporary storms. You've learned that the literature of self-mastery teaches a simple truth. Real power lies in mastering the inner world, not in trying to control the outer world. Like the great leaders of history, you can develop a mental structure that transforms adversity into fortitude. You've received 5 specific practical tools: the sacred pause that breaks automatic reactions, thought observation that creates psychological distance, reframing interpretations that develops mental flexibility, wise visualization that prepares your mind for challenges, and the right questions that direct your focus toward growth. You've incorporated 3 powerful metaphors: the mountain, the conductor, and the gardener, that serve as mental maps for navigating life's challenges with wisdom and serenity. You've discovered refined techniques, strategic silence that transforms provocations into demonstrations of your inner power, conscious detachment that frees you from the prison of rigid expectations, and daily practices that build your mental fortress. Brick by brick, now it's time to act. Don't let this knowledge be just information that passes through your mind like water through a sieve. Transform it into wisdom through consistent practice. Start today. Choose one of the 5 practical tools and implement it immediately. In the next challenging situation that arises, and it will arise in the next few hours, apply the sacred pause. Breathe 3 times before reacting. Observe what happens. Establish a daily mental strengthening practice today. It could be just 5 minutes of morning gratitude or 10 minutes of evening mental observation. The important thing is to start. Consistency is more valuable than intensity. Use the metaphors when you feel shaken. Visualize yourself as the mountain when someone tries to provoke you. Assume the role of the conductor when your emotions are chaotic. Become the wise gardener when destructive thoughts invade your mind. Always remember, when you master this unshakable mind, nothing and no one will be able to shake you. Not because you'll become insensitive, but because you'll develop an inner strength so solid that you can feel deeply without destroying yourself, love intensely without desperate dependence, work passionately without neurotic attachment to results. Your journey to an unshakable mind starts now. Not tomorrow, not next Monday, not when conditions are perfect. Now. With the next thought you choose to observe instead of automatically follow. With the next pause you decide to take before reacting. With the next interpretation you choose to question instead of blindly accept. The world needs people with unshakable minds, people who aren't dragged down by drama, who don't amplify chaos, who offer stability in a world of constant turbulence. You can be one of those people. In fact, you're already becoming one just by having come this far. The unshakable mind you are building is not just a gift to yourself, it's a gift to everyone who crosses your path. Your inner peace will become a refuge for others. Your emotional stability will become an inspiring example. Your wisdom will become a beacon for those still lost in the storm of automatic reactions. You have the tools, you have the knowledge, you have the capacity. Now you just need one thing: the unshakable decision to build this unshakable mind, one day at a time, one conscious choice at a time, one sacred pause at a time. The moment is now. The decision is yours. And when you master this unshakable mind, you will discover that not only can nothing and no one shake you, you will become a force of stability and wisdom in a world that desperately needs both. Start today. Your unshakable mind is waiting to be born.